Welcome back, Focus Learners. I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here for this explainer, because today we're equipping you with an absolute superpower, and I mean that literally. Whether it's for your exams, your academic research, or stepping up in the workplace, we are diving deep into the art of mastering Précis Writing. You know, the average person processes tens of thousands of words every single day. Between the emails, the reports, the articles, the textbooks, it is incredibly easy to just completely drown in all that data. If you've ever felt totally overwhelmed by a massive amount of reading material, or if you've spent hours sifting through a single document, well, this is the exact skill you need to cut through the noise and take your time back.
So think about this for a second. How do you take a dense 300-word passage and magically turn it into just 100 words? And do it without losing the core message, the tone, or the impact? In our modern age of information overload, conquering the monster of endless text is a highly relatable struggle. It can honestly feel like you're trying to stuff a sprawling novel into a tiny shoebox. But whether you're condensing 50-page business reports for an executive team, analyzing complex legal contracts, or preparing for high-stakes standardized exams where literally every second counts, condensing that text is the exact challenge a Précis solves for.
Here's our roadmap for today. Number 1, what is a Précis? Number 2, Précis versus summary. Number 3, success characteristics. Number 4, step-by-step guide. Number 5, mistakes to avoid. And finally, number 6, the ultimate exam formula. Let's jump right in. Okay, section 1, what is a Précis? The miniature portrait. Let's figure out exactly what we're dealing with here. So the term itself actually comes from French, meaning precise or cut brief. Think of a Précis as a miniature portrait of the original passage. It's like an exact DNA replica of the original text, just on a much smaller scale. Now, one of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to shorten a text is what I call the haphazard chop down. You know exactly what I mean. They just take a yellow highlighter, blindly select a few random sentences that sound kind of important, and string them all together. That completely ruins the flow. A Précis is not a cut-and-paste job, not at all. Instead, you're capturing the author's original thesis, their exact arguments, and their unique voice, all while systematically stripping away the excess fluff. You're basically rebuilding the entire architectural structure of the passage, just in miniature form. So, you might be wondering, just how small is this miniature portrait? Well, unless your specific exam instructions or workplace guidelines say otherwise, the golden rule of length is shrinking the text down to exactly 1/3 of its original length. So if the original passage is 300 words, your Précis should land right around 100 words. It's a really tight constraint, and that's exactly why it requires such precision. Constraints breed creativity for sure, but more importantly, they force you to truly evaluate which words are absolutely essential and which ones are just decorative. Moving on to section 2, Précis versus summary. Knowing the difference. This next concept clears up the absolute biggest confusion students face on exam day. Let's look at the core differences between these two concepts, because they are constantly mistakenly treated as the exact same thing. A Précis is incredibly strict. It has to be an exact replica. It maintains the strict logical order of the original piece, it uses the exact same tone and mood, and it almost always requires a suitable title to anchor the theme. A standard summary, on the other hand, is much looser. It really just grabs the general main points, the order you present them in can be entirely flexible, and a heading isn't really as critical. Think of a summary as telling your coworker the gist of a meeting they missed. A Précis is much more rigorous. It's for formal, high-level reporting where the original author's specific logic, sequence of thought, and emotional weight absolutely must be perfectly preserved. All right, section 3, success characteristics, the blueprint. Let's see how a perfect Précis is actually built from the ground up. These right here are the non-negotiable traits of a successful Précis. First up, clarity and conciseness. Every single word has to earn its keep on the page. If a word doesn't add structural integrity to the idea, cut it. Second, complete objectivity. This means you act as a perfect mirror, reflecting only the author's views, never ever your own. Third, you've got to adopt the original author's tone. If the author is furiously arguing against a new law, your Précis must capture that exact same sense of urgency and frustration, just using fewer words. Fourth, and this is a big one, guys, it must be written in your own words, which proves you actually digested the material rather than just regurgitating it. And finally, logical flow. You have to use linking devices like therefore, however, or because to make sure the sentences connect smoothly and coherently. It has to read like a highly polished, standalone piece of writing. Section 4, Step-by-Step Guide, the execution. Let's talk about executing this blueprint, especially when you're on a tight deadline.
Let's walk through this chronological process together. Step 1. Read and understand. You should actually read the passage twice. Do it once quickly just to get the overall feel, and then a second time with a hyper-analytical eye to identify the core arguments. Step 2. Extract the main idea. Ask yourself, if I had to explain this entire passage in a single sentence, what would it be? Step 3 is really where the magic happens. Remove the fluff. This requires some serious discipline. Look, if an author lists apples, bananas, and oranges as examples of a good diet, your précis simply says healthy fruit. Boom. The minor examples, the repetitive metaphors, the long block quotes, they all have to go. The core idea stays, the decoration leaves. Step 4, rewrite it in your own words, condensing the main points into a single cohesive paragraph. And step 5, give it a short, suitable title representing the central theme and ruthlessly review it against your word count limit.
Section 5, Mistakes to Avoid, the Deadly Sins. Now that we know exactly what to do, we absolutely must cover what not to do. Okay, I want you to consider this statement for a second. I strongly believe education is the best thing in life. Can you spot why writing this sentence would immediately ruin a good précis? Hit the nail on the head. It introduces personal opinion. The single most important rule to remember is that a précis is a mirror of the original author's ideas, not a review of them. You have got to maintain complete and total objectivity. Even if you vehemently disagree with the text, you must swallow your pride and report their exact views. Never add your own personal opinions, your own interpretations, critiques, or any outside facts that weren't present in the original text. You're a reporter relaying a message, nothing more. So here are the other fatal errors you need to actively avoid. First, copying verbatim or plagiarizing. Examiners absolutely hate this because it shows you're just acting as a photocopier rather than a critical thinker. If you just lift exact sentences, it proves you didn't actually understand the text enough to translate it into your own vocabulary. Next, exceeding word limits. Remember that 1/3 rule we talked about? Drifting past that shows a total lack of editorial discipline. Then, there's missing the central theme, which means your summary lacks focus and ends up misleading the reader. Also, including minor examples makes your text bloated and wordy, which defeats the entire purpose of the exercise. And lastly, changing the original meaning. If you accidentally distort the author's original message while trying to shrink it, well, the précis instantly fails its primary purpose.
Section 6. Ultimate Exam Formula. Your superpower. Finally, let's give you a mental mnemonic to burn into your memory for exam day.
Memorize this exact sequence for your workflow. It's a total game changer. Read carefully. Understand the main points. Shorten by removing all the fluff and examples. Rewrite using your own words while keeping the author's tone. Title it appropriately, and check the length, grammar, and meaning. Following this deliberate, step-by-step progression ensures that you never panic. When you're faced with a massive wall of text, you don't just stare at it blankly anymore. You just calmly run it through the system.
Précis writing isn't just some academic hoop to jump through, guys. It is a vital, critical thinking superpower that sharpens how you process, analyze, and communicate complex information in literally every area of your life. So my final question to you is this. What massive wall of text will you conquer next with your new superpower? Is it going to be a dense business report, a complex historical document, or maybe that intimidating exam passage you've been dreading? Take this formula, apply it to the very next long article you read, and watch how clearly the true message reveals itself. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and happy learning.